Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good evening, you lovely people, and welcome to Tom Skinner's Real World with me, Tom Skinner. Now, tonight we've got some lovely guests. We've got the Conservative MP of Orpington, Gareth Bacon. We've also got journalist and contributing editor of Novara Media, Michael Walker, and the formidable GB News presenter, Nana Aoko. I got all the names wrong, sorry. And comedy legend, Duncan Norvelle, and of course, we've got the cheeky chappy Tom Skinner.
What do you think you're playing at? This is my show. It's Lee Anderson's Real World. Clear off. Security, get him out. Look, it's my show. It's Lee Anderson's The Real World. Time for the news.
Good evening. I'm Rory Smith in the GB Newsroom. A legal bid to challenge the decision by the Home Office to use former RAF bases to house asylum seekers has been approved by the High Court. West Lindsey District Council opposes the use of RAF Scampton in Lincolnshire. Braintree Council is challenging the use of Wethersfield Airfield in Essex. The two-day hearing began on Wednesday as the first migrants began arriving at Wethersfield. Well, former Home Secretary Priti Patel has told us here at GB News that laws cannot be disregarded.
Braintree District Council have worked incredibly hard, and all credit to them and their legal counsel for getting us to where we are with this judicial review. It's important that local people and our local councils and statutory service bodies, that their voices are heard. We have laws in place, Nationality and Borders Act, we had the new plan for immigration in place. We worked for years to get those policies in place and that legislation in place. You can't just discard it and try to supersede it with new policies.
Almost 1,000 workers at Gatwick Airport, including baggage handlers and check-in staff, will stage 8 days of strikes later this month. Unite Union says they're because of ongoing pay disputes. Workers will walk out for 4 days. That's from Friday the 28th of July, then again from Friday the 4th of August for another 4 days. Former Manchester City footballer Benjamin Mendy has been found not guilty of rape and attempted rape at Chester Crown Court. The France international was accused of raping a 24-year-old woman at his house in Cheshire in October 2020. He was also charged with the attempted rape of a 29-year-old 2 years earlier. Mendy has always denied the charges. Hollywood actors have joined a strike by screenwriters for the first time in 60 years. As well as a pay rise, actors want guarantees that AI versions of their likeness won't be used to replace them without permission or payment. Well, actress Susan Sarandon says the entertainment industry needs to support their workers.
Are situations that are new, so we're in an old contract for a new type of business, and it's just not working. Well, I've been here a number of times, and it always makes me feel optimistic because it means that there is a chance if we stick together that we can get justice, and that's what we're here for.
In sport, world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz will face Novak Djokovic in the Wimbledon men's singles final. Earlier, Djokovic beat Jannik Sinner 6-3, 6-4, 7-6. His record equalling 46th Grand Slam semi-final earns him a record-breaking 35th final, taking him past that of Chris Evert. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now though, it's back to Lee Anderson.
£30p Lee, some people call me. Where did that come from? I'm going to tell you where it came from. Just a few years ago, I was out with the local food bank in Ashfield delivering ready-made meals to people in the community, people that needed our help. Me, along with a local chef, an award-winning chef. And as I was delivering these meals, the chef said to me that this is all wrong. What we need to be doing is teaching people how to cook from scratch. You know, get the fresh ingredients, the best ingredients, the cheapest ingredients, sometimes from the local supermarket, and make wholesome meals and batch cook them, which would reduce the cost for families that are struggling throughout Ashfield and the country. So he threw down a challenge. He told me that he could cook, or he could feed a family of 5 for 50 quid in a week. I said that was nonsense. I gave the challenge. I went to the local Aldi with 50 quid in the shopping list. I got 4 MPs in the kitchen in the food bank with people from the local college and the chef. And actually, we made 5 different recipes and we made 172 meals, and that come to 50 quid. That worked out at 30 pence each. We then delivered the meals to the people throughout the community. So that's where the 30p tag comes from. Now, I did actually ask the Labour MPs in the chamber. Well, I wrote to them, every single one, and said to them, come to my food bank, you're taking the mickey out of me over my 30p meals, come to my food bank and we can show you how to prepare meals on a budget, by batch cooking, at a relative cheap cost, about 30 odd pence it was costing us. Not one single Labour MP took the challenge. They should hang their heads in shame, I think. I was trying to solve a problem. All they do is try and create problems. They're not interested in solutions, they're just interested in cheap political point scoring. Now then, tonight on The Real World, I've got top MP from Orpington, Gareth Bacon.
Thank you.
And Michael Walker, who's a leading left-wing journalist. He's our left in the corner. He's there. Good evening, Michael. Now then, we're going to talk about crime in London. We're going to talk about ULEZ in London and Mayor Khan. And a lot of people contact me, Gareth, I'm sure they do you as well, about the fact that Mayor Khan's lost grip of crime in London. We're just going to show this clip before we start of what happened in a chicken shop in Tottenham. Well, there you go, Gareth. That's quite distressing signs there. That's happening in London. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, that's an absolutely shocking scene, of course. And sadly, it's too typical. There are too many events like that. Now, does Mayor Khan care about crime? Yes, I think he does. I mean, you know, any human being would. He is a father. He wouldn't want his children to be exposed to stuff like that. So I don't doubt that he cares about it. The problem is he's not very good at combating it. Yeah. Clearly, something is going wrong in terms of violent crime in London. And if you look across the mayor's record, his responsibilities, the things that he's actually responsible for, aren't going too well. We've got the fire brigade in special measures, the police are in special measures, Transport for London has got some very shaky finances. The mayor, despite record levels of funding from central government, hasn't delivered the housing that he's supposed to be delivering. What he's very keen on doing is picking fights with Donald Trump on Twitter, on banging on about Brexit all the time, about blaming the government for his lack of delivery. He's not really very keen on actually delivering what people want.
When is Mayor Khan going to take some responsibility?
Well, he hasn't so far. He tends to pass the buck all the time. Nothing is ever his fault. Yeah. So much so that I actually asked the policing minister in the House what the point of Sadiq Khan was, because he seems completely incapable of changing things for the better, and it's always somebody else's fault. So, you know, the mayor is not taking responsibility for himself. He passes the buck all the time.
OK, Michael, have you got an opinion on this, on Mayor Khan and crime in London and ULEZ?
I think it's a bit ridiculous hearing a Tory MP talk about people not being serious about crime. I mean, after 2010, you cut police funding by 20%, crime went up. The extent to which police can solve crime went down. I don't think closing a bunch of youth centres was particularly helpful either. To me, it seems a bit like a desperate attempt by the Conservatives to try and build some momentum in London where they're going to lose the next mayoral election anyway.
Khan's doing a good job then in London?
Well, I think Khan's doing a fairly average job, but I don't think the Tories have a message that's going to worry him at all.
Gareth, what would you say to that?
Well, crime went down under Boris Johnson, despite the fact that Michael mentions from 2010, it actually went down over the lifetime of his mayoralty. And funding for Sadiq Khan for the police has gone up by over £1 billion since he took office.
Michael, do you want to come back on that one?
Well, I mean, again, we've got a situation whereby if you're looking at an individual city, there's going to be a bunch of different factors which feed into what the crime levels will be. I imagine lots of people missing school over COVID wasn't particularly helpful, for example. But I think if you're looking at which party has the better story to tell on crime, it's not the Conservatives because of those 20% cuts to police, which means that the police aren't really solving any crime anymore. They used to solve a lot more crimes than they used to. It's also the case that I know people who work in housing. Sadiq Khan seems to have been pretty good at providing local councils with enough funding so they can build council homes. Things such as ULEZ, you might rail against it, is actually quite popular with Londoners.
It most certainly is not.
Really?
No, it is. I mean, polling
outrageous.
suggests it is. So the polls say that a majority of Londoners support ULEZ. A majority of Britons don't. But quite frankly, it matters if the people in the city want the policy.
OK, I think you've stoked a fire, Michael, within Gareth's belly. He wants to come back on ULEZ.
I've never heard so much nonsense. Honestly, I mean...
Well, you stick around, Gareth.
Yes, the Mayor's own consultation. So, excuse me, when the Central London ULEZ was introduced, it had support from all sides, and that's perfectly reasonable because air pollution is in Central London and largely around Heathrow Airport and some of the trunk roads in and out of London. And that was a perfectly fair thing. Stretching it to the north and south circular was, I think, slightly more problematic. The Mayor said that if there was a response to his consultation that was overwhelming and negative, he wouldn't do it. 60% of Londoners said they didn't want it, 70% of those in outer London, and 80% of businesses said they didn't want it. To say that it's popular in London, frankly, is absolute nonsense. I mean, there is nothing to back that up at all, other than polling commissioned by the Mayor, which is sampling, what, 1,200 people in a city of 8.5 million? Really, it is just completely ridiculous.
Michael,
I would challenge Michael to come
Michael, you've got to come back on that one, my friend.
Come back to my constituency and knock on.
Polling is. So polling doesn't work because you ask the most amount of people. It works because you ask a representative sample.
Okay.
Now you're talking about. No, a consultation is never a representative sample. That's not how consultations work.
Right.
So a consultation is people who are particularly aggrieved by something will respond to the consultation. Okay. I mean, this is very, very basic social science. A poll, you have to have a representative sample. A consultation,
right. So even though the mayor intervened in the polling and sent targeted adverts at people he thought because he was getting results as they were coming through in real time. And then he commissioned TfL to do targeted advertising to people he thought would be more supportive. He then tried to suppress the results that were coming in from certain organisations, despite allowing them from others. So the mayor tried to skew the consultation because he knew it would be deeply damaging to him because it was going against
consultation. So there's two things. There's polling. So the polling shows the majority of Londoners support it, which is probably why Sadiq Khan is going to win the next mayoralty and the Conservatives have absolutely no chance. The consultations are never representative. That's not what they're supposed to do. What they're supposed to do is get people who are very aggrieved, interested parties to give their opinion. Consultations aren't democracy.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting. You two should...
Just one secondly. He talks about democracy. Where's his mandate to do this? He hasn't got one.
Well, it's a fair point.
Well, where's his... Well, he's going to face Londoners at the next election. I think he's probably going to win. If you're right, if the polls are wrong, then maybe your candidate will win banging on about things that people don't care that much about.
Why doesn't he just delay it?
Why doesn't he just delay it?
Yeah, if it's so popular, if Londoners really want this, delay the implementation until May. Let's make it an election issue.
Government's own statistics, it's the Tories in power. According to the government's own statistics, 26,000 to 38,000. Well, I'm answering the question.
Just calm down.
I'm answering the question.
You're not answering the question.
Can we have security, please? Security in to break this up.
No. If it's such a popular policy...
prematurely because of poor air.
Right, guys, we're going to wrap this up now. It's getting a little bit boisterous. What I would say, my final thoughts on this is that I do not believe that Mayor Khan would be doing this if there was no money in it for him. If central government said to Khan, right, go ahead with it, and every single penny you raise from the ULEZ scheme will go back to central government as opposed to going into your pocket, then I don't believe for 1 minute that he would actually do it. I think he does care more about ULEZ than he does about crime. That's my own opinion. But thanks, guys. That was a very robust and sensible conversation. But, I want this show to be about real people in the real world, and there's nobody more realer, got pulled up for using that word last week, I don't give a monkeys, I'm going to use that word, there's nobody more realer than Gary the Cabbie. I'm going to join him next to talk about whether or not the BBC licence should be scrapped. So here we are again, the highlight of the week with Gary the Cabbie. He's full of common sense. I like Gary, he says it how it is. Gary, the BBC. Now, when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s watching the BBC, it was a place of comfort, a place of trust. It was anti-Beeb. It was something where you went to and you felt safe watching the programmes, whether it be John Craven's News Round, Blue Peter, even the news. But today it seems to have gone a little bit woke, a little bit political. What do you think about it, Gary?
Yeah, I agree. When I was a kid, you didn't have the choices that you've got now, but now they're politically pushing it to the way they want it. Certain presenters, it's getting old now.
No, you know, you see things like, I mean, I don't watch the BBC anymore, by the way. I turned my licence up quite a while back, and if they come knocking on my door, they'll get told where to go. But that's just me, that's my choice. But when you see people like Lineker from Match of the Day on Twitter tweeting his political nonsense, I think to myself, my goodness, you know, the great British public are paying your wages. What do you think?
Yeah, Gary Lineker, stick to the football. He's good at what he does. Yeah. Don't be telling us what his political views are. If he wants to tell his family, friends, by all means. I'm not interested in his views. I'll be interested in his views on football, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it through the pandemic. We saw the BBC, who I think, in my opinion, became the official opposition in this country. It wasn't the Labour Party holding us to account, it was the BBC. Do you think there's a role within the media to do that to government, or should that just be left in politics?
No, left in politics. No, it's not down to them to be doing that. Let the politicians and politics do that. They stick to putting what channels of what they've got to put on their telly.
And what about the licence fee, Gary? That grates with a lot of people in my community, in my constituency of Ashfield. Do you think it should be a subscription service, or do you think it should be, you know, the TV licence should carry on?
Scrap it.
Scrap it?
Subscription. I have to pay for Sky, Apple. I have to pay for what I want to watch. Shouldn't have to pay for the BBC if I don't want to watch it. I'm not interested in watching EastEnders and things like that. So why should I have to pay for it?
Well, that's brilliant, Gary. That's more common sense from Gary the cabbie. But look, stay tuned. Joining me after the break is 80s British comedy legend Duncan Norvelle.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, my name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast brought to you by the Met Office. So it's been quite an unsettled, wet and miserable end to the week, and that isn't going to change much as we go through the weekend. It's all due to this area of low pressure that's going to be pushing northeastwards across the UK, and it's going to be bringing some pretty strong winds even as we go into tonight. But that rain that we've seen through much of Friday will start to clear away towards northern Scotland, but bringing some heavier bursts for eastern areas, so there could be some localised disruption there. Elsewhere, a drier night, maybe the odd shower, but with those strong winds, temperatures still remaining in the low teens. Now looking to the start of the weekend, and that rain will start to clear away from northern Scotland. A rash of showers developing across the rest of the UK. These could be heavy and thundery, and with some particularly strong winds as well. They'll be rattling from west to east throughout the day, though we might just see the odd more slow-moving shower across parts of Scotland. But in those strong winds, it's going to continue to be feeling unseasonably cool through Saturday. Looking ahead to Sunday, though, generally the better day of the weekend for many. There will be some persistent rain for a time across western parts of Scotland and the odd shower elsewhere, but a bit more in the way of sunshine and winds starting to ease as we go south to north. But looking ahead into the new week, and it will still remain unsettled, not so much as we've seen over the weekend, with temperatures at or below average.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
You will recognise my next guest from the 1980s British TV comedy scene, a legend, a comedy legend, Duncan Norvelle. It's great to have you here, mate. Listen.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
I remember seeing you at the Aquarius nightclub in Chesterfield, 1986, 1987. You came on and I laughed from start to finish, and your act would be described as a man playing an effeminate man. I don't know if we can say that these days. It was a, let's just see a clip right now from Duncan back in the day.
Oh, go on, chase me. I thought you were coming.
So Duncan, like I say, absolutely hilarious. You were one of the biggest stars in the 1980s. You had a brilliant catchphrase. Which was "chase me." I mean, it scared a few men off with that line. But you don't say that anymore, do you?
Well, not since I've had my stroke. I've had to change it. You know, because I go on stage in a wheelchair now, unfortunately. But I've changed it. The catchphrase from "chase me" to "push me." So I've had to change the act, obviously, because of what happened to me. And that was in 2012, and I still wish I could run around, but it's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, but you're still running around in your head.
I'm still doing the odd shows here and there.
But the great thing is, Duncan, you're still making people laugh, aren't you? You told me earlier about the cruise ship you've been on, a few appearances, and you're still making people laugh.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Now, comedy heroes for me in the 70s and 80s about your era, as when we talk about effeminate men, these characters that came on, one of my favourites was Larry Grayson.
Yeah.
Did you ever come across Larry?
Yeah, I worked with Larry in Norwich way it was.
Yeah.
And he just, I met him at rehearsal first, and he just said, they said, "Do you need any props, Larry?" And he just said, "No, just give me a door that opens now and then, and a chair." you know, and all he did was walk on with a chair. He says, "You sent it drafty in here, shut that door," and then just sit on the chair and lean against it.
It was a genius, weren't it?
Yeah, he was a lovely man as well.
The success for Laurie came later in life, didn't it? I mean, I think he was about 50 when he got his success, when he really became a big television star.
When he did the Generation game.
Yeah. Well, talking about TV game shows, now, I understand that you had the pilot show for Blind Date.
Yes, that's right.
What happened there?
What didn't happen? If anybody's ever seen the clip, which I don't know, it's been odd bits on telly have been shown of me doing it in a pink jacket. I camped it up an awful lot because the producer was gay, who I was working with on it, and that's how they wanted me to play it. And I did, and it was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. I mean, the studio was just in hysterics, and I thought I'd got it.
Yeah.
I really did. And then it went to the heavens to be the men upstairs, the gods who say everything in TV now, what goes, what doesn't go. And they said I wasn't old enough to do it.
Oh, how old was you, Duncan?
I was about 20. And they were looking for an older host. And that Max Brygraves came into the reckoning. And then Scylla seen the pilot that I did, and she said, "Oh, I'd love to do that." And she knew it was a hit. We all did. And but I think I should have had it. A guy called Marcus Plantin was one of the producers, and what a lovely man he is, you know. And I know his wife well, Kate, and they both said to me that, well, the other day I was with Kate at a Water Rats function, and she said to me, "You should have got that, Duncan." Back then, Marcus even said that, but it was out of his power. He has to go up to the next level.
So, Duncan, you know, you have a stroke in 2012. I mean, that's just completely changed your life around.
Changed my act around.
You changed your act around and your life, but also giving you a fresh focus as well, getting involved with the Stroke Association. Can you tell me a little bit about that, please?
Well, I was made ambassador to the Stroke Association, and I go around doing shows for them, raise a bit of money. But with a stroke, it takes away your life completely, and the person, because it just means your brain's lost for one side of your body. If you have a stroke in your right-hand side, it affects your left, and vice versa. And it's all adverts about cancer and heart attacks. Nobody really does a thing about stroke. They kind of let it go.
At the time of your stroke, Duncan, was you alone? Did you have family there, support there?
I was alone, really, yes. Because my girlfriend at the time was a singer, and she was out working when I went to bed. All day I was scared of the light coming through the windows. It was giving me a permanent headache, and I've never had that before, so I thought, something wrong here. I'll get an early night, so I went to bed early, and my girlfriend rang me halfway through the night, and I got up to answer the phone at the time, and I just collapsed. My legs went from under me. I knew I'd had a stroke. I really did. And I managed to get down the stairs on my bum, and I got down there and I got to the telephone and I spoke to the operator, and I said, "Can you put me through to the local taxi firm?" And I thought I'd get a taxi to the hospital because it was a Friday night in Blackpool, and it would be, to get an ambulance, I would never have got one. So I was going in a taxi, and the company, I knew them, and they said, "Duncan, are you all right?" I says, "No, I've just had a stroke. Can you get a cab here as soon as you can?" And the guy come and he helped me up off the floor, got me to the taxi, then took me straight down to the hospital. another stroke after that one when I got there, Lee, and because I was in the hospital, I survived it. Okay. If I'd have been anywhere else, if I'd have gone back to bed, I'd have died in my sleep.
But the good news is, Duncan, you're here.
Yeah,
you're
well,
on GB News, and I need your help now.
Okay.
It's a great story you've told me. We have something on the show called Wokey of the Week, where we look at the most woke people or woke organisations, and you're going to help me judge this. So the first one we've got is the NHS. It loses 26,000 working hours to its staff attending woke events, as waiting lists soar to a record 7.4 million. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that's an absolute scandal. The next one we've got is the Archbishop of York. He tells the General Synod that our Father has patriarchal connotations. The Lord Prayer opening may be problematic, says the Archbishop. What a load of nonsense that is. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, it's like me. I could have got in the choir.
Would you?
Would he have let me in?
I don't know.
Hey?
The NHS, obviously, staff attending woke events. Yeah. We've got another one. Number 3 is James O'Brien, LBC presenter. Yeah. He's been on again this week, having a go at me and my friends in Parliament. Yeah. He's a bit of a journalistic nuisance. He's got a face like a slap. Basically, all he does is just go on there and rants and raves.
Talking through it as well,
yeah.
I think, with that.
So, I mean, James always makes an appearance on Wokey of the Week, bless him. And so, what we're going to have this week, Duncan, is it the NHS for sending or for wasting 26,000 working hours on woke events? Is it the Archbishop of York for talking about the word Our Father in the Lord's Prayer, or is it going to be James O'Brien?
I've always been brought up Our Father.
Yes.
And I think
I think you're right. Yeah, it's Our Father. Well, there you go, Duncan. This week's winner is the Archbishop of York. And here's the trophy. I'm just going to show that there.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well done, Archbishop. Coming up after the break, we have the brilliant interview with the Queen of Common Sense, Nana Acquia.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views, and often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce my next guest, which is the Queen of Common Sense, Nana Akua.
Oh, thank you. What a nice intro.
Well, thanks for joining me. Listen, Nana, we're going to dive straight into it. There was an article run last week about this charity. I know you did a little bit about it on your show, describing vaginas as bonus holes.
Yeah, so it was this cancer trust charity, so Joe's Cancer Trust, and what they were doing, it was for women who now believe they're men, who have transitioned, so that the vagina is now surplus in their view, so therefore to detach themselves from the reality that they actually have a vagina, because obviously once you've gone through this sort of change, which ultimately I believe is simply, it's a cosmetic surgery, isn't it really? You now have this hole that you have to deal with. So they're calling it the bonus hole, because if you're a man, you wouldn't have two holes.
Do you find it offensive?
I find it totally dehumanising and pretty degrading, actually. Why on earth would you want to sort of manipulate the language in such a way that kind of degrades the vagina, which is what it is. It's a vagina. You can't get away from the fact that you have a vagina. Even if you want to be or you believe you are a man, you are still a biological female, therefore you will have a vagina.
See, the trans community are a tiny percentage of our community. I also believe there's another community that lie awake at night thinking of silly things to say the following day. And I think this idiot is not, I said it on Twitter last week, he's not a front hole, he's not a bonus hole, he's probably an for coming up with something like this. It's absolutely ridiculous. But this opens, another argument, a wider debate into the whole trans debate at the moment. We seem to be spending far too much time talking about these issues like changing rooms, like safe spaces, etc. When actually, when you go out there in the real world, knocking on doors and speaking to people, nobody's actually talking about this nonsense. Who are these people, Nana?
Well, look, I think that there are people who are concerned about this weird sort of silent overreach and encroachment of this ideology into society. It's fair enough if someone feels that they're not a man or a woman, that's fair enough, but we cannot be adjusting the language in a way. And I think it is important actually to focus on it. And a lot of parents like me are concerned about it. I mean, I went to my son's school the other day and I asked, are you teaching any gender stuff? And they said, no, we're not doing that. Because I'm concerned. You hear reports of one recent story about in a school where a girl was, sexually assaulted in the so-called unisex toilets. And there's a reason why these areas are segregated, not because all men are predators, but because the reason why women are segregated from men in this way is because women are more vulnerable. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, schools especially, children are very impressionable.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be fashionable to do something which is not the right thing to do. Teachers. I mean,
what's going on?
What part are they playing in this?
Well, I think that, to me, a level of it is there's a level of indoctrination, isn't it? An adult belief system that has now been projected onto the kids that hasn't been validated by any actual legitimate source, and the majority of us don't agree with it. So, for example, on one thing, somebody took their child to a doctor and they said, and they had to fill in how you identify as. These are young children. They asked how they identify as, and were given 4 options: boy, girl, non-binary or trans. It was like, when did those options become an agreed decision by all? We haven't made that decision.
Look, I know times move on. When I was a child, and probably you're a little bit younger, a lot younger than me. Well, you certainly look a lot younger than me now.
Thank you, dear. It's very, very well said.
Boys played with soldiers and action men, and girls played with dollies, and we sort of accepted that as normal. And I know there's nothing wrong with a boy playing with a doll. There's nothing wrong with a girl playing with soldiers and action men. But we've gone a little bit too far, haven't we?
Well, we have. And I find it incredible that when you ask that simple question, what is a woman? Because people say, oh, you can take gender away from biology and everything. So I say, OK, you identify as a woman. What is a woman? Yeah. They cannot say adult human female because they've said it's disassociated from biology. Yeah. So what is a woman? And then it becomes your own perception of what a woman is. Therefore, it becomes a nonsense scale of lots of different elements of gender. So there are millions and millions and millions of gender underneath that notion because everyone is an individual. So there has to be a biological structure that everyone agrees with what a woman is.
So why do you think politicians, well, some politicians, haven't got the guts or the balls to say what a woman is?
Because they're too busy sitting on the fence because they want to try and get everybody's vote, but they don't realise that in doing that, they're excluding literally 50% of the population who are looking at this and thinking, just say what a woman is. That's fine. Yeah. We accept it. Stop pandering to an ideology which is not a reality, and stop trying to make out that you can disassociate gender from biology when if you're asked that simple question of what a woman is, you can't answer it.
And actually, at the moment now, it's turning nasty as well. We saw last week, we saw a trans activist who I think had been in prison for about 30 years, you know, saying to people on this demo, go out and punch people.
Yes, because he identified as a woman. And if you are a woman, that is literally, as in the woman's brain, if you believe you are a woman, which I believe I am, and I know I am as I'm an adult human female, it's not really in my mindset to go out and punch someone. It's more a male masculine trait that they are demonstrating by doing that.
Right, look, I mean, it's an interesting conversation, and I could go on all day with you talking about this. It's absolutely, well, I don't know, it takes up far too much time, I think.
Do you think?
I think it does because, like I say, in the real world, you know, my mum says to me, I'm a woman, I've had 3 kids, I know what a woman is, you know, and it's as simple as that for the vast majority of people in this country. But the thing that concerns me is the schools.
Yeah, it's the encroachment.
It's that bit where we should be protecting our children, we should be holding the teachers to account and making sure, you know, you're not indoctrinating my child to listen to this nonsense anymore. But look, that's been a brilliant discussion again with the Queen of Common Sense. And we're going to go to Agony Anderson next, where my mailbag has been bulging again this week. We've got some real serious problems coming in, and who better to help me this week than Nana Aquia. So, Nana, the first one out the mailbox this week is from a lady called Rachel, and she says, my daughter doesn't want to go to university, and I'm worried that she won't be able to get a degree, or get a good job without a degree. How do I convince her to go to university?
Well, I'd say, Rachel, that you don't convince her to go to university, because if people don't want to do things, they don't do a very good job on them. I would say that there are loads of things they could do, like the be-all and end-all isn't university. I'd say they could do an apprenticeship. If there's something they're passionate about, they could get some experience in the thing that they want to do. Find out what, I'd say to her, find out what her daughter wants to do and see if there's a route that she can do it without university. And in most cases, there is. University is incredibly expensive. You come out with 70, 80,000, up to £100,000 worth of debt. You might actually be better off. She might end up wasting her money. If she doesn't want to do it, don't make her do it. Find what she loves, find what her passion is, and she can find a route to it.
So I guess, Rachel, let your daughter follow her dreams.
Yeah, let her follow her dreams and help her to facilitate that, and look for ways that you can help her get to that don't include university.
OK, Nana, have you got one for me?
I have got one for you.
Come on, then.
This is a tricky one, Lee. This is from Sam. She says, Lee, or he says, Lee, I'm really worried about my mortgage. My fixed rate ends in 7 months at current rates. I'm due to pay an extra £550 per month. I've not had a pay rise for 2 years, and even if I had, it wouldn't cover my new mortgage. What is the government doing to help those of us who are genuine, hard-working folk?
It's a great question, Nana. Jeremy Hunt, as you know, last month met with the major lenders and discussed this new mortgage charter, which allows borrowers now to go into an interest-only mortgage, which will help them in the short term for 6 months. They can extend the length of the mortgage, which will help keep the repayments low. And this won't affect their credit score at all. So people have got that little bit of insurance. And also the repossession period, because sometimes the banks are pretty quick at starting the repossession period. It's not in their interest, really, to repossess properties, but that's been delayed for an extra 12 months. So there's 3 protections there. Look, I know it's not ideal. I know people are struggling. But I was up onto my day when I bought my first house. I paid 15% the mortgages was, and that was a real struggle for me. But, I mean, luckily for me, on a 15% mortgage, there was only one way that mortgages were going. That was down, down, down. And through the 90s, they did go down to a more affordable rate. So I would say people that's looking at their interest rates now, hopefully, within the next 6 months to a year, we should start seeing them interest rates come down. And hopefully these 3 measures in the mortgage charter will help people get through that tough period.
I mean, let's hope they do, though, because, you know, the way it looks to me, the banks seem to have set this thing where they've looked at how much people can afford, and those rates have gone up accordingly, which I think is a little bit unfair. They can see all your money, so then they're working out, well, they can afford that, they can pay that. It's very unfair. These measures are good, but ultimately people will have to pay, if it's not fixed in about 12 months or so, it may even be higher than that, and that is the worry for a lot of people.
Is that the bell, Nana?
I think
it's last orders at the bar. So coming shortly, we've got me and Tommy Skinner on the pull and last orders at this brilliant bar here.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my new show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m, where real people get to meet those in power and hold them to account. Every week, we'll be hearing your views from up and down the country in the real world. Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Now then, I'm delighted to be joined by Tom Skinner. He is an apprentice star, businessman, grafter, bosh. What's all that about?
Bosh, and a good-looking geezer.
And a good-looking geezer. Never said that word before. Tom, I'm delighted you're on this show.
Mate,
so, yeah, absolutely brilliant. Listen, your story is amazing. You know, you're dyslexic, you've not got the best education, you're now a successful businessman, you've not sat there waiting for somebody to knock on your door, you've not sat there feeling sorry for yourself, you've got up, you've grafted. How did you do it?
Just hard work, mate, literally. Like, I mean, I got expelled from school for being an entrepreneur. Literally.
Whoa. What do you mean, entrepreneur?
My dad gave me some pornos to sell. That was literally what happened. And I got expelled from school for selling those. He said, go £3 each, 2 for a £5, give me £1 back each one you sell. Headmaster weren't too happy, got expelled. So I literally went to work from a young age. I had paper round at the age of 12. Worked in my dad's mate's barber shop on Saturdays, set up stalls on Romford Market. Just always working from a young age. It just just built my way up.
So The Apprentice, how did you get onto that programme?
Well, I didn't even watch The Apprentice, but my wife Sinead is like a super fan, yeah? Now, she was my girlfriend at the time. Like, she loves it so much she wears a tie when she puts it on. And I was selling pillows at the time on the market, had a good little round, and she went, I'm going to apply you to go on to The Apprentice. She filled out the form, told a load of lies, average churchgoer, got business degrees, and they read it and must have thought, wow, he's a Class A student. Went for the interview and got the job.
Did you feel out of your depth when you went on there with all these suits?
Yeah, well, I done what everyone shouldn't do. I went to Lakeside Shopping Centre, I bought a brand new polo shirt, because I always wear a nice polo, pair of jeans and a pair of boots, turn up to the interviews, every single person had a three-piece suit on, and a file of facts and you name it, and I was the odd one out, but we got
So it's life-changing for you, I guess, The Apprentice?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, nothing's really changed. I still work the same, still got the same group of mates, but I just get noticed when I go places.
So I guess, you know, I look at, especially young boys at school, young girls as well, but especially young boys that are stuck in about 14, 15 years old, they're at school, they don't really know what life's got in store for them, they're a little bit confused. Yeah. I'm a strong believer that those sort of kids, and girls as well, should be taken out of school at 14, 15, given an apprenticeship, proper vocational training, with the schoolwork at the side of it, because they've got, you know, they've got a brain, they've got hands, they can do stuff.
You know what winds me up? The educational system's all wrong. Say there's two children, one's a monkey, one's a shark, yeah? And the lesson is about climbing a tree. Yeah. Well, the kid that's a monkey is going to climb the tree like a pro, right? And then the kid that's a shark is going to get told, oh, you're not good enough, why can't you climb the tree, why can't you do it? Well, if you put him in the sea, he'd outswim the monkey, but we ain't doing it. And that's why I think in school, I was never taught how to open a bank account, you know, how to get a mortgage, how to get a loan, all such normal living day things, how to live your life. You're taught, I mean, I've never used half of what I learned at school before I got expelled, so I think the education system is all wrong. You know?
So a monkey, a shark, and some kids think they're cats these days as well, don't they? So, that's a lot of nonsense, isn't it? But I guess I was hopping back to my school days. I remember a kid at my school. He was a bit of a nuisance at school. He was always wagging it. He was always spending time up on the farm, helping the farmer, baling the hay, messing about with tractors. He didn't want to go to school, but he actually taught himself mechanics. He then went on to become a mechanic, had his own garage, did stuff like that. He's quite wealthy. He's got a great family, a great setup, great house, etc. But he did that himself from 14 years old. You know, but as a society, as schools, as trainers, we should recognise that talent, shouldn't we, Tommy?
Do you know what it is? Especially here in the UK, you can have anything you've ever dreamt of, yeah? But all you got to do is overcome fear. Once you overcome your fears and push yourself, because too many young people nowadays give up before they've got there. Yeah. If you carry on, keep pushing yourself, keep moving forward, you will do it, and you can have whatever you want. Just it's all in your head. Anything's possible.
So what about role models in your life? Who's your role models?
Probably my dad, you know, like my dad was always a grafter. He's always out on a Friday night with his pals having a beer, like he would have a few quid in his pocket, and that's, I just looked at my dad and his mates and I thought, I want to be like them. None of them had 9-to-5 jobs. They was all ducking and diving and doing all right themselves. And obviously I lived next to Romford Market and I see all the grafters up there in the mornings, and that's what made me want to go forward.
So successful, wealthy, businessman, TV personality. What's next, Tommy?
Well, I've just had two beautiful little twin girls, Darla and Roma, and we've just got them home from the hospital, which is fantastic. And I'm just gonna be there for them. My little boy Henry, my beautiful wife Sinead, and carry on working hard. Obviously, I've got a book coming out. Like I've got so much going on, but it's just be there for the family and be a general nice person.
Well, listen, your book, what's it called?
Graft.
Graft. Is it a good read?
Mate, do you know what? I'm dyslexic. I've struggled reading and writing my whole life. And I work really closely with a guy called Nick Harding, who, mate, is fantastic. And we had such a laugh writing the book. And I think everyone's going to love it, because it is literally just what I've done through life, the troubles I've been in. I've been skint, sleeping on my mum's floor and had no money, like not having to put 10 in the van to driving about in a Bentley. And, you know, it's all what I've done through hard work.
Right, enough of that, Tommy. You're behind the bar. I know you like a few.
Yeah.
Every week we have a guest on to see what they're like actually pulling a full pint. Go for it.
Let's go. This is not my first rodeo.
No. You look like a professional, mate.
I ain't really done it before, to be fair. I normally get told off for pouring my own pints in the pub.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I'm on the wrong side of the bar.
Yeah. Oh, it's a bit frothy, mate.
No, listen. Listen. This is going to be perfect, look.
Well, that is absolutely, yeah, I've got it on there.
Just
stick it on there, yeah, stick it on there. Is that the first pint you poured?
Today.
Today. I know you like a beer.
Yep.
That looks like we had Vicky Michelle. She's leading the board at the moment, actually, on 9. We had Marco Longhi on a few weeks
Look
back.
how lively that is.
It's
That's
very
a good pint of
lively.
beer.
Who's going to drink that? You?
You.
I'm off the beer at the moment.
Well, I'll drink it.
So Marco Longhi he's the MP for Dudley North. He got a pathetic 3. There was froth everywhere. We had Bobby George last week. He did it perfect, and then when he lifted the pint up, he actually cracked the tap, and it just frothed everywhere. So I think he got a 7. He got quite aggressive at being awarded a 7. So he's a great guy. But I'm looking at that, and I think that's an unequal footing. In fact, I want to give you 9.5 for that. Because I think Vicky Michelle, she got 9, but that is perfect. Got the blackboard here, Tommy.
So I go on the board now, yeah?
You're on the board. Tom Skinner, this is probably the biggest achievement of your life so far.
That's it. I've made it now.
Yeah, 9.5. I think on the leaders' board that's going to take some beating. Tom, but look, mate, I look forward to reading your book.
Thank you, mate.
You are an inspiration. Not too keen on the accent, but we can work on that. That's a bit of a wide boy, Barrow boy, Essex sort of type accent. But no, it's brilliant, mate. Your story should be an inspiration to hundreds of thousands of young people throughout the country. So, Tommy, absolute pleasure. Thanks for joining. Give my love to the twins and Sinead.
Love that, mate.
Sinead's my wife's name, by the way, so
brilliant.
Got something in common there, mate.
Love that, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Can I drink that pint now?
Yeah, it's here. Yeah, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
In one.
Bosh. Get down a free cold for the best pint ever.
Cheers, Tommy. So, I'll be back at the same time next week, and my guests include Mark Francois MP, Vince Cable, former leader of the Liberal Democrats, GB News presenter Kelvin Robinson, 2-time Olympic medalist Fatima Whitbread. Good night and stay safe.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, my name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast brought to you by the Met Office. So it's been quite an unsettled, wet and miserable end to the week, and that isn't going to change much as we go through the weekend. It's all due to this area of low pressure that's going to be pushing northeastwards across the UK, and it's going to be bringing some pretty strong winds even as we go into tonight. But that rain that we've seen through much of Friday will start to clear away towards northern Scotland, but bringing some heavier bursts for eastern areas, so there could be some localised disruption there. Elsewhere, a drier night, maybe the odd shower, but with those strong winds, temperatures still remaining in the low teens. Now looking to the start of the weekend, and that rain will start to clear away from northern Scotland. A rash of showers developing across the rest of the UK. These could be heavy and thundery, and with some particularly strong winds as well. They'll be rattling from west to east throughout the day, though we might just see the odd more slow-moving shower across parts of Scotland. But in those strong winds, it's going to continue to be feeling unseasonably cool through Saturday. Looking ahead to Sunday, though, generally the better day of the weekend for many. There will be some persistent rain for a time across western parts of Scotland and the odd shower elsewhere, but a bit more in the way of sunshine and winds starting to ease as we go south to north. But looking ahead into the new week, and it will still remain unsettled, not so much as we've seen over the weekend, with temperatures at or below average.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, in My Big Opinion, a top makeup brand uses bearded men in an advert for their female cosmetic products. The cancellation of women continues apace. In My Take at 10, the media elite circling the wagons to defend Hugh Edwards will be sorely disappointed. Shocking allegations remain. This story is going nowhere, not on my watch. And my
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can